Kentucky Democrats are going after Mitch McConnell and his unwillingness to bring up legislation that would protect our elections for a vote. He keeps blocking them. And so they have decided to use the hashtag Moscow Mitch to refer to him, which has gotten under his skin. He's been very salty about it. And they're also selling some merchandise. So in one of the t-shirts that they're selling, the Kentucky Democratic Party is hawking t-shirts with a barbed message, just say Nyet to Moscow Mitch. So let's take a look at graphic 4.
Yes.
Look at his face.
But that he does look like that, though. That's what he looks like. To be fair, they're being accurate.
So look, it's puzzling why he wouldn't allow for these, in many cases, bipartisan bills to get voted on in the Senate. Again, this is all about protecting our elections. This is not, an effort to destroy the Republican Party. You have Republicans supporting it, but there are some, news stories popping up in places like Politico that might give you some of the financial incentives behind why McConnell is doing what he's doing. So according to Politico, 2 former top staffers to Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell have lobbied Congress and the Treasury Department on the development of a new Kentucky aluminum mill backed by the Russian aluminum giant Rusal.
What an unbelievable coincidence. Monk taught me that there are no coincidences, but maybe there is. I mean, what a lucky break Moscow Mitch caught. He helps to get the sanctions lifted. He says you can work with a foreign government, i.e. Russia, if they interfere with the elections. And then he gets a Russian plant in his home state of Kentucky. But wait, there's more.
Yes. So more details. Attention over the sanctions relief deal has focused on McConnell, given his role in halting a bipartisan congressional effort in January to stop the penalties rollback. So we're specifically referring to the sanctions against Russia. McConnell told reporters in May that his support for lifting the sanctions was, quote, completely unrelated to anything that might happen in my home state.
Oh, that's very likely true. I mean, they had 50 states to choose from. It was like Hawaii, Rhode Island, Kentucky. I guess Kentucky's the best state. I mean, the fact that the majority leader's from Kentucky and is gonna help lift our sanctions, no. I mean, you just drew it out of a hat. It's 1 out of 50 chance.
I mean, this story has everything that's wrong with politics, right? You have the revolving door of politics. You have his former staffers, top staffers, now working as lobbyists, for essentially this project. And then at the same time, you have Mitch McConnell, who's I'm sure concerned about his reelection chances, doing what he thinks is gonna be beneficial for the state of Kentucky, right? And by the way, lifting the sanctions in order to allow for Russian-backed businesses in your state is just a giant conflict of interest, but it's allowed. It's allowed in American politics.
Yeah, look, if there was no issue of the Russians having interfered in our elections and the sanctions being placed on them, now there's even people are concerned that some of this stuff might go to the Department of Defense, and they're worried about that. I don't know how the aluminum would make a difference in the Department of Defense, so I don't know that that's a very strong case. But I'd look into it more, etc. But like those are the issues. If you said, hey, a majority leader uses power to get a plant in his home state, that's normal politics. That isn't an issue at all. I mean, and if you worked with, let's say, Toyota, and that's a Japanese company, who cares? But Japan didn't try to interfere in our elections. They're not on a sanctions list. They're not the oligarchs working with Putin, et cetera, et cetera. So that's why it's deeply problematic to do it in this way. But I actually think Politico, and get a brace for impact here, did a great job.
This is a good report.
Yeah, it really is. In showing his 2 former staffers, his ex-chief of staff and the guy in charge of trade policy, go over and start working for lobbyists who are pushing to make this deal happen for the Russian company.
Yep.
And another company that is now partners with the Russian company. And again, they go, well, that's just a wild coincidence. Another coincidence. In fact, Mitch McConnell, who's almost always prepared with some BS excuse, it doesn't matter how thin a read it is. On this one, he's like, the staffers, did they lobby me? Did they lobby me? And we're gonna get back to you on that. You're gonna get back to Politico on that, and you're gonna let them print that you don't have any excuse. They lobbied you, okay? That's certainly the implication. And besides which, guys, who are we kidding here? You think McConnell doesn't know that 2 of his top staffers are lobbyists for the company that he just gave this great deal to? Of course he knows, and his other staff knows, and his staff knows they might get a job with those same lobbying companies later, that it's gonna be very, very lucrative if they make this deal. This is the swamp. So if you voted for Trump because you hate the swamp in Washington, Mitch McConnell is the head turtle in that swamp.
Definitely. And one final thing. The Moscow Mitch thing is really getting under his skin. Dana Milbank in the Washington Post wrote an opinion piece and titled it something along the lines of Mitch McConnell is a Russian asset. That got under his skin. Listen, pressure works. And right now it might appear like we're just stressing him out, but let's keep applying that pressure, because at the end of the day, the most important thing is getting that bipartisan legislation passed to protect our elections.
You know, I'm glad you said that, Anna. So one more thing about that. The reason why he's a little freaked out is because he's never really had to fight Democrats his whole career.
Yep.
They usually just surrender either right before the battle or the minute the first shot is fired politically, Schumer collapses in a pile, right? And so, and the media is constantly, if it's an establishment Democrat or an establishment Republican, like, yes, sir, absolutely, sir. If you say your staffers had nothing to do with it, sir, they obviously had nothing to do with it, sir, right? And the fact that the media and the Democrats are not immediately collapsing has got to have him flummoxed. He's like, well, I don't understand. Why didn't they surrender? This is super weird. And so that's why he's discombobulated and he's trying to withdraw into his shell. On the go, don't worry, we got you covered. You can still listen to TYT at our new podcast network. Find us on Apple Podcasts, the Google Play Store, or at tyt.com/podcast.